In this episode of Hockey Inside Out, will the Canadiens one day live to regret signing Carey Price to an 8-year deal? And is it okay for Habs fans to keep ridiculing the Maple Leafs? I'm going to say it is, yes. My name is Adam Susser, welcoming you to another edition of Hockey Inside Out with our panel. Today we have Montreal Gazette's Pat Hickey, CBC Daybreak's Jessica Rusnak, and joining us for the very first time, Mr. Brian Wilde from recrutes.ca. Thanks for being here, Brian.
Pleasure.
Here's what we're going to be talking about on today's show. After Saturday's 4-3 loss to Toronto, are the days of Habs fans being able to make fun of the Maple Leafs finally over? Number 2, have the Habs finally been reduced to a 500 team? Number 3, is Arturi Lehkonen a good fit on the number 1 line with Max Pacioretty and Jonathan Drouin? Number 4, which Canadian team is the best in the NHL right now? And number 5, will the Canadiens organization one day live to regret signing Carey Price to an 8-year contract? Let's begin. Well, for the first time in almost 1,000 years, it looks like the Toronto Maple Leafs have finally put together a team that can skate and score some goals. I'll probably regret admitting this in public, but Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and my personal favorite, Patrick Marleau, lead a Toronto squad that's actually respectable and a lot of fun to watch. So is it time to stop making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs and their fans? Well, that answer is a resounding no. I believe it's written somewhere in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms that anyone not from Toronto reserves the right to ridicule those from Toronto, and more particularly, their stupid hockey team. And besides, all they really did this past weekend was end one of the most pathetic losing streaks in sports. So with that in mind, I'll ask the panel, after the Leafs beat the Canadiens, ending their 2-year, 14-game losing streak Saturday night at the Bell Centre, are the days of Habs fans being able to make fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs over? You like that one?
I do.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I would say yes, because right now Toronto is really the team that's on the upswing. They have so many young, talented players that they're going to have for a lot of years, and they have them right now at an entry-level contract. They have Mike Babcock, one of the arguably the best coach in the NHL right now behind their bench. So, yeah, I don't think there's any reason to be making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs right now.
I think it's enjoyable to watch. They're a lot of fun. I think the thing that really I appreciate the most is the fact they're scoring goals and they're playing loose, fire wagon hockey. This is not Mike Babcock hockey. And I go back to his 2 Olympic victories, and I say, what would have happened if he let all that talented players go loose instead of playing that boring defensive style? He has to play a wide open game because he's got a lousy goaltender. The defense isn't much better. So I think they're a lot of fun. I don't think this. I think they're fun rather than an object of fun.
Okay.
I have to take the other side.
Yeah.
I think you have to make fun of them because that's what sports is all about.
Yeah.
So just because they put a win together, what you do here is if they have a good season, you just refer back to that it's their first good one basically since 1967.
There you go.
And then just begin the mocking from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're good now, but I mean you've got another 49 years to make up for here to stop being the object of my ridicule.
Yes, thank you.
So if you think you're wonderful now, enjoy your 5 minutes.
I mean, they're a young team. They're exciting. They're a lot of fun. They have a lot of potential. But let's win some champions. Let's win multiple championships before
or
maybe
at least
we can ease
even
off
a good
bit.
season, even one good season.
Yeah.
They don't even have a good. They got a good 3 weeks in there right now, right? They're like everybody's praising them, and Austin Matthews is Jesus Christ. They've had 3 good weeks. Is it even 3? Maybe it's 2.
2.5.
Yeah.
2.5.
There you go. I like this. Let's have him back.
The
more
parade
often
has begun
on
at the
show.
2.5 week mark.
Well, the
that
media,
makes no sense.
The media loves them. Like I said, I enjoy them, but you know, let's let them win a lot, some championships.
At least a month.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. After Tuesday night's 5-2 loss in San Jose, the Habs, their last 50 games are 23-23-4. Okay, that's at par. Have the Canadiens been reduced to a 500 team?
They can only hope they're a 500 team by the end of this month.
Yeah.
I mean, right now they're far below a 500 team. You can go back to last year, but if you're looking on this year's record so far, 1 win, 1 overtime loss, they've got to be a lot better.
And Shea Weber even said after the game, losing sucks, and that's really how everyone feels. But now they have to do something to turn this around. This California road trip was always sort of, you know, the death of the season. Usually happened in March, and this is where their playoff hopes started to become a little bit in jeopardy. But it being at the beginning of the season, some were wondering, oh, maybe this is a good time. They hit the road, they can figure out, you know, what's lacking, and then they can string some wins together, and maybe the confidence build too when you beat some of the big like California teams. but I just find they're not playing like a team that knows what they're doing. I think there's a lack of confidence right now, and as they say, the only way to get confidence is by winning games, and another way to win games is to stay out of the penalty box as well and not give them those kind of opportunities.
Only two things can happen when you shoot a puck. It is saved or it goes in the net. So for the Canadiens, when they shoot, they're only doing it at 3%, which is at a low so historic it can't continue. And they're saving it at only an 8.80, which is Carey Price struggling, and also that can't continue. Both of those numbers can't continue. So they're less than a 500 hockey club right now, and they've been at that number you stated for a long time. In fact, their goals for is only 2.1 since January 16, which is a terrible number. So I'm arguing that it can't continue, even though it seems to be continuing for a long time.
Do you think what do you think this team needs to do to finally break out of that? Is Bergevin going to make use of the salary cap money that he has left, or this team just needs to pick it up? Can they do that?
I think the strategy is to try to keep in the playoff race until January, late January, February, and then use that cap money when the cap money becomes even more than it is now. The key is whether they can do that. And right now, there isn't an awful lot out there. Matt Duchene, can they make a deal there? There's just not a lot of, teams aren't trading at this time of the year. So either you have to get some help. There may be one or two guys at the in St. Where are they now? Laval, where they are now. Yes, maybe that's a way to shake it up. But right now, they don't have. The thing that bothers me the most is there's no effort there. You look at Hemsky quitting on plays last night. There's just there needs to be more fire.
Well, even Claude Julien said after the game that there was a laziness with the team. And how can you be lazy at this point of the season? And even going back to the preseason, it was like game 3, and I remember talking to some of the players, and they said, oh, we just weren't sharp tonight. How are you not sharp now? This should be the opportunity when you're the sharpest, you're rested. It's not like it's January where you say the grind of it is getting to you. And I think that's the biggest problem. I'm just waiting for there to be some kind of move. Remember when Perry Pern got fired, and that was sort of some sort of way to shake up the lineup, that there's going to be something to be done to try and make these guys wake up, but I don't think it's going to be a major move because, like as Pat was saying, you can't do any right now. It'll be a minor one.
I think the plan was to spend that $9 million when Marc Bergevin saw all of those teams that were going to give up. But if they don't get their act together, they're themselves going to be the team that gives up and doesn't spend the money at all. In fact, finds it enters next season with $15 million because they've given up on the season. Now, this is obviously, a death scenario that's being presented here, and I really believe that Carey Price can't be as bad as he's been, and I really believe that the goal scorers aren't as bad as they've been. But at a certain point, they have to start showing it too, or I'll get proven to be an idiot on the panel here today.
I think that I
thought Pat was going to just go, "Yep."
I think we're maybe panicking a little too much about Carey Price. His save percentage is way down, his goals against is way up. But you look at some of the goals he's given up last night. I mean, there were a couple of power play goals. There was some really bad defense.
But I think, Pat, the two last games of his have been really bad.
Yeah.
They
haven't been good. But at the same time, if Shea Weber and Victor Mete when you're depending on a 19-year-old defenseman, but if those two guys aren't out there, they're in trouble.
I agree 100%. I mean, Victor Mete has been an amazing story, but if he is your story at 19, it's a bit scary as a headline.
Yeah. So they're playing Arturi Lehkonen on the number 1 line with Pacioretty and Duran. Do you think he's a good fit there?
I think he's a good fit. I don't really think there's anyone else that's sort of rivaling him for that spot as well. I think he's the prospect who's developed the best, and it could be because he developed in Europe rather than under the Canadian system right now, because they haven't been able to push their many prospects to the NHL. So I think it's fine with him being on that top line.
Okay. What do you think, Pat?
I think it's a good choice. You can put Gallagher there. It's pretty much the same. The main problem is the one they've had for several years. They're still weak down the middle. Jonathan Drouin is playing the center on that first line. In 5-on-5 play, he's fine. He's still struggling in the face-off circle. I think it was one game a couple of weeks ago. He was 3 for 12. And one of the face-offs that he won, ended up with a turnover and ended up a goal for the opposition. So, that's still something they have to address. But they have to get more players on the other three lines working, trying to produce something. We know that the Buchanan's line has been very good this year. This is probably his best start, but still they're not scoring goals. They're getting lots of shots on goal, but you have to figure out where are the shots coming from. Are they creating scoring chances? Big difference between shots on goal and scoring chances.
Mm-hmm. I don't think the problem is Lehkonen with Drouin. I think the problem is Pacioretty with Drouin.
Really?
Yeah. They're not doing anything together. They don't see each other well. Pacioretty has very few good looks right now. Very few opportunities. I think he had only one shot against San Jose. He's not been a really good player to start the season, and he's their leader. And the old saying always is in hockey circles, your best players have to be your best players, and Max has to be one of the best players, and he's not even close, and he doesn't seem to have good chemistry with Jonathan Drouin as much as they practice together all summer.
Do you think Pacioretty's having one of his off streaks, or do you think it's only a matter of time before Julius splits the two up?
He could split them up. It wouldn't surprise me. He moves the lines around a lot. He hasn't really favored anybody start to finish. When he broke up Plekanitz's line with Lehkonen and Udon that seemed to be really good together, it told me they could break anybody up. So I think they should be broken up. I don't think they're good together. I don't think they see each other well. I think Galchenyuk should be with Drouin. And as far as Drouin having two scorers on either side, I think it's great. He's a really good playmaker. He's a good passer. Put a scorer on his left, put a scorer on his right. It'll work because Lehkonen is a good guy who retrieves the puck. He battles well. He's a good, as they say, F1, forward one, forechecker. So,
okay. So which Canadian team do you think is the best in the NHL right now?
I think the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you say anyone else, I don't think you've really been watching hockey at the moment, but they've been the most exciting one, as we were talking about before, and on the standings as well shows.
Do you think they'll end the year like that, as the #1 Canadian team, or up there in the standings?
I'm going to say no.
No?
Who do you think will?
It'll be the Oilers.
It'll be the Oilers. I believe it'll be the Oilers too. I think they have more balance than the Leafs do. I think that the Leafs can improve their defense. They'll be a very strong team. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the division. But I think the Oilers are. Oilers have a year or two on the
Leafs.
On the Leafs in terms of experience. I think eventually the Leafs will be a better team.
My predictions are looking good so far. Yeah, I took Tampa to finish first, Toronto to finish second, and Montreal to finish third with 92 points.
Wow, okay.
So that's all looking good, except for I might be too high on the 92, which pushes them from third to fourth.
I think right now they're on about a 70 points.
Yeah, even lower.
Yeah.
They're lower than Colorado. So.
Over the summer, Marc Bergevin signed Carey Price, who's 30, to an 8-year deal, making him the richest goalie in history. Do you think the Canadiens organization will one day regret signing Price for that long?
I don't think it's the length, it's the money, giving $10.5 million into your goaltender. No other team has had the highest paid player on their team as their goaltender. And I remember in the summer, Marc Bergevin said, well, how do you see this working out? And he said, well, we'll find out. And I don't know if that is the best way to do it, especially when everyone says if you want to win, you have to have a #1 center. And this team, it makes it that much more difficult to go out and find a #1 center.
Yeah.
It's always been a surprise to me that the goaltender isn't the highest paid player on the team, because I think he's the most important player on the team. I think if you have a #1 center, #1 forward, if he gets 40 goals, if he gets 80 points, it's a tremendous year. But the goaltender has to be there he's on the ice 60 minutes every game. He's got to play 60 games. He's got to win 40, 45 games for you to get into the playoffs. So I think that I have no problem with him being the highest paid player on the team. I think the big problem is that, the salary, which puts him in the top 4 or 5 players in the league, is based on the fact that the salary cap is going to keep going up. And I don't know whether we can assume that. I think that what happens is that, you have an influx of money from Las Vegas this year, but you still have teams that drag you down. The TV money isn't going to get any better. And in fact, the TV money when these contracts run out in 8 or 9 years will not be as good because people are turning off TV. People are going to other sources for the games. So I think that we've had an escalation of the salary cap since they introduced the system, but it stopped. This year is the first time the expenses the revenue coming in was stagnant. And that's going to be a problem. And as more and more players get upset about the escrow that they pay, particularly the guys who aren't at the top of the, if PK Subban or Carey Price loses 15% of their salary, it's not that big a deal. But a guy making $650,000, the minimum, or a guy in that mid-range making $1.5 million, you take 15, 16% of their salary, it hurts.
I don't think they'll regret it in terms of money, because I actually am going to take the other side there, that 10.5 won't seem like a tremendous amount of money at the end of his contract. It's the age that's more concerning, because the degradation of his skill set could happen at the age of 35, 36, and then what do you do in the final 2-3 years?
But goalies,
I wouldn't worry about degradation as much as injury. That's going to be the big problem.
Well, maybe that's the same word for me.
Yeah. Of course, if there is an injury,
because he's already had chronic issues with his knees.
That's right. You can take the salary cap off your thing if there's a long-term injury. But that's the thing that bothers me, is that his history. He hasn't been consistently healthy for more than 2 years at a time.
But I like Jessica's point about how much you spend on your goalie to win the cup. Historically, she's absolutely right. Your goalie isn't the highest paid player. And the reason that Pat was striking on was in terms of how much a goaltender is needed to win a cup. The difference is that the top goaltender doesn't have a huge margin between him and 10. This is going to be a little bit mathy, but the top goaltender may come in at 9.30, but number 10 comes in at 9.20, and that's only 0.1, which is only a third of a goal, which isn't a lot. But the difference between a top center, which Pat did talk about how important that is, he can be 90 points, but if you have a very bad top center, he can be 50 points. Now, we can all hear the huge margin difference there, and that's why my philosophy has always been in hockey: win the middle, win the game, more than win the goalie, win the game. Because there is such a great disparity from a Sidney Crosby and an Evgeny Malkin who can win cups, and a Philip Deneau and Thomas Plekanec who can't win cups.
That's an interesting math there.
Yeah.
That's our show for today. We want to thank you all for tuning in. We want to thank the panel for coming in, Pat, Jess, and Brian. And if you're watching at home, which I don't know where else you could watch, well, I guess you could watch maybe
on the bus.
Montreal, on the bus.
Yeah.
Share, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it. I'm Adam Susser. I'll see you next Thursday.